how are you seeing the marketing department in B2B? Those of us who are in the B2B marketing space evolving. Back to your point, we still need to deliver, but we also have a bigger role in strategy. We want to be closer to sales. You need to have a data scientist in that's not what I joined 15 years ago when I arrived at Accenture. So, how are you seeing the marketing partners evolve to try and you
need to be a bit of a marketing technology expert these days, don't you? It's almost a very broad-ranging skill set. And just back to your point about personalization, I think about some of the exciting things that are happening in my industry. We're starting to see real use of AI. Yep. So kind of conversational AI, as it's called, which basically just means it's not just a chatbot, so much higher up the funnel than the conversation we've just had, but a virtual agent, if you will, who is armed with, it'll trawl the website, it will learn from conversations, it can deal with omni-channel, i.e. it can synchronize other communications that prospect or customer has had, through WhatsApp, Twitter, whatever it might be. That can add a huge amount of value and be really personal. What's more personal than a two-way conversation? Because you're already onto a winner if it's two-way. And what I'm seeing, which is really interesting, which was, a kind of conference call I had earlier today, was just this notion of the virtual assistant kind of taking on a persona. Mm-hmm. So how different would that virtual assistant look like if they were, the brand ambassador, if you like, for Hewlett Packard versus the brand ambassador for Boohoo or ASOS? And suddenly you've got a lot of play there. And I think, when you do the research, the consumer quite rightly says, push come to shove, I want to speak to a human being if I can't be helped. But the best of both worlds is I want 24/7. I want someone that's really smart, really efficient. And that personalization is really just a cover story for that efficiency, because if that agent, that virtual agent, has all the knowledge, understands your business, understands your sector, is learning all the time, that technology is going to be very powerful for businesses, I think.
Okay, so I can see that part of the answer to that conundrum you set, which is how do you be all things to all people, is automation's a part of that, whether that be marketing automation like you talked about with the Marketo, or intelligent automation with AI. What about your people's skills? I mean, one of the ways we're starting to look at it is actually, you mentioned generalists, and actually we're kind of moving the other way. We think many people need to be specialists. I neatly heard it called the other day T-shaped. Everybody needs to be broad enough to understand, but deep in something. And I think, certainly for us, that's the way we're starting to look at how you scale the marketing function, so that you have specialists in doing the events and not everybody has to do them. And so you have specialists in delivering content and shaping it. Not everybody has to do it. At the front end, you need to be able to consult and advise and be the business, connect that we talked about. Anyone else seeing either their own or marketing departments changing in different ways that people might learn from, or that sort of start to talk to some of these trends?
My view, my perspective, there are some things that are apparently changing a lot superficially, but not really in the root. So you were saying analytical skills. Yeah. I think analytical skills have always been part of good marketing, right? The way we do that, the way we apply these skills is different, right? But segmentation or quantitative analysis and so forth has always been very important. Now there are different tools to do that, smarter tools. What I think is changing really is maybe two or three things. One is agile thinking. At least when I started marketing, I did not know anybody was thinking agile, right? Normally you have the marketing plan, which is as a minimum 1 year, sometimes it was longer, right? Those things really do not exist anymore. The cycle is way shorter, and the best performance, at least, I think they are really rewarding people who are able to take risks and so forth, right? To me, this is quite new, frankly. The other one is something that I think we were discussing before. So marketing is now front end. Before, marketing was producing content that ultimately was reaching the customer or enabling sales who talk with the customer. Now marketing is front end, because normally marketing is managing the Twitter account, the LinkedIn account, and so forth. We are really talking directly with customers. That's relatively new, I would say. And the third big trend that I see at an organization, not so much at an individual level, but at an organization, is centralization, because digital to me drives a lot of more centralization than in the past.
So I would say in some cases I agree. Well, I agree with what I'm seeing anyway. centralization in some things, but high degrees of localization in others, because people still live in markets and speak different languages and have different cultures. So there's got to be a really good bridge between whatever you centralize and whatever you localize. I think what you're saying in there as well is marketing has to have, in B2B, has to have a different mindset in the past. And I would agree with that. We have to believe we are more accountable and more responsible for the customer experience than, as you say, in the past when it was just do some stuff at the behest of whoever it is that asked. I guess, what I am seeing though is the reflection of that in the way we organize as well. So, I actually am seeing, particularly in Accenture, but also in other organizations, marketing departments change the way we structure to reflect some of those trends. And I just, I guess for people out there who are facing those challenges, that might be the next. You talked earlier, I think, about marketing transformation in our own businesses. And I think, most of us are having to start, driven by many of the things you talked about. By the way, I think you're being kind. I don't think in the world we lived in, data and analytics was ever quite as core a discipline as it probably should have been. And that's a personal view, not a, but I do think it's come much more to the fore.
Well, and I think just to build on that, I mean, we've talked a bit about the kind of digital and centralization, and there is definitely this sort of feeling of brand is back, like it was brand marketing and whatever, 80s and 90s, and then it sort of went away and now it's back. But I think that is because there's a recognition that with this plethora of opportunities for anyone in the business actually to communicate directly with a client or prospect, but as you say, perhaps shifting more to being in the marketing environment, then suddenly things like having a strong brand, being consistent against that promise, thinking about how do you take the perceptions of the market and your clients and your employees and look to try and shape those to drive behaviors, that's suddenly become very important again because the channels have opened up.
And I would say exactly, the big difference there is in that old definition of brand was the brand police. Yeah. There was one way to do it, and that was the way. And if you didn't do it, you got taken out the back of the bike shed and shot. Whereas now you've got to be a coach. Everybody's a brand ambassador. You've got to coach them how to do it best. You don't have time, resource, or investment required to police the whole business all day, every day.
Yeah.
And until just, 10 years ago, the norm, at least in the businesses that I know, was that every country had their own campaigns. Corporate was setting the big theme, but France had their own campaign, Italy another set, Spain another set, and so on and so forth. This is absolutely, nobody's doing that anymore, right?
And the waste of cost that
yeah, absolutely.
We're using journalistic skills within the marketing org a lot more. I think that training that you have, the crucible of journalism is so fast. You win or lose a customer in moments, which might ring a bell to recent marketers. But you're also taking complex stories and distilling them in a number of different ways for a number of different users, long form, short form, personality led, whatever. I think that there is a very useful strand of training in that marketers now will find valuable. And I do see that the people with journalistic training are sort of surfacing a little bit more. And the other thing I'd say is entrepreneurialism, actually, because you need to be, especially in a big organization where there are so many different departments and ways of doing things, the self-starters who chase down the right person in sales to build that bridge between the two departments, and vice versa, who value the salesperson who values the marketing tool and think, oh, well, this would be great as a sales asset as well, rather than just another white paper,
So, if I pull all of that together, and I'll come to each of you in turn in a second, just to perhaps share the one or two, or maybe three if you wish, because it's the rule of three, right? Is the right number of things that you think B2B marketers should be focused on as they go through the next couple of years. We've talked about we need our people to be journalists, we need them to be data scientists, we need them to be business advisors, we need them still to be able to do the basics of delivery, we need them to be digital experts. So we're asking a lot about people. I guess if you're a CMO today, and all of you are or have been in roles like that, what do you think you would be doing, and what are you going to be doing in the next 3 years that that you think other CMOs might want to listen to? And I guess I'll give you mine. I'm organizing my teams where I can to be more focused on the lower down the funnel, more on bid support, more on account-based marketing, because I think you can make a real difference there that we haven't had in the past. I think we are, trying to force our people to be much more focused on fewer, better content to make the narrative easier to understand, because I think in the rush to content, not just we, but the market has become flooded and getting cut through is difficult. So you need to be much more thoughtful about your content. And I think the third is you need to be, sensible about how, in my view, how far you take, in a B2B context, the responsibility of the digital channel to carry the whole message. I think there's still a real balance of physical, personal interaction required to close sales. And again, I see too many people that have, are trying to make social carry the load in a way that I just don't think it's going to ever be able to in a high-end B2B world. So those would be my sort of 3 points. And again, we'll go the other way around this time because I'm a very fair man. Lucio, your thoughts on what should the CMOs of today in a B2B environment be thinking about?
I like your points. So narrative content, definitely very, very important. The other one that you also said, accountability all the way through the buyer journey, especially on the digital side. The third one that I would add is understand that it's always an ecosystem. So it's never you talking to the customer back and forth one-on-one. There are many other players that may be your competitors, that may be your partners or potential partners. So try to understand, try to see the customer journey from the customer viewpoint and not from the point that you are trying to serve to them, right? But what else, what are the other touch points that they are experiencing maybe from some of your partners that you're not even aware? And these are all potential opportunities.
Nikki.
So I'm going to go dive a little bit further into the future, if I may, because that's the industry I'm in. So I think, again, back a little bit to the theme of AI and thinking of some of the routine tasks that are going to be removed. And we talked about things like CV sifting, notes from meetings, simultaneous translation, all of these things that will just get done. And I think, the workplace then becomes a much more about the sort of human interaction part. So I think what's really important is going to be customer experience, employee engagement, and the workplace in the broader sense. So I think there's a really interesting irony where the more artificial intelligence we see coming in, the more human the workplace becomes in a way, and the more we should be focusing on those very human elements.
Okay, interesting. Jack?
Yeah, I'd echo the labour-saving benefits of machine learning and artificial intelligence, definitely. I think that my 3 things would be for us to be more benefit-led and outcome-led, focusing on the customer, their experience throughout. I think it's going to be much more important and also easier to do. Collaborative internally, it's always going to be important. We are all, as marketers, collaborative sellers, And then the other thing is possibly quite hackneyed, but it's still very important. Which is to do one thing well, which is to be yourself, know your company, know what you stand for, and not add more noise, but just say one thing and be known for that is really hard to do. Don't worry, but I think it's always going to be critical.
Finally, Antonia.
Yeah, so I think that, and we've talked a lot about kind of the burden of being a modern marketer today and how much there is. So I think as a leader, you can help by being very clear about what the outcomes are and how you'll know that you've got there, and really trying to orientate people to that target or goal. Because I think it's very easy to get distracted and pulled into other things. And that then leads you to an unhelpful conversation with sales around, where are my leads? Marketing didn't show up for me. But that's because we were doing all of this other unattributable work. I guess the other thing, for me is about getting the balance between having a really strong sense of what are the metrics, what are the indicators, how we're using data to listen. But there's a level of inspection in there, and inspection necessarily precludes people from taking risks. So getting that balance right to create the right environment where people feel a high sense of accountability for results, but also feel enabled to take risks and to get things wrong, and to, that's being human, and that's also progressing things. I think that's going to be a really interesting challenge. And then as I think things like AI come in, and to some extent, you've always had the option to outsource or to put things to vendors, right? So we've always had the opportunity to think about what's the blend of work in our team, which is doing it in a much, much more efficient way. But, then it's about, how do you, there's a kind of Velcro effect from the things that you always knew and you always got value from and you always enjoyed doing. And how do you help to kind of rip that Velcro a little bit and go, okay, it is change, but we recognize that you might well be leaving something behind that you've really enjoyed doing and you've got a lot of satisfaction from for a while, but this other thing can also feel good. So I think that that's going to be, because it does enable more of that human relationship thing. But I think that the downside to that is there are things that AI will be doing that some of our teams really just enjoy very much, and we're taking that away from them. So, I'm kind of mindful of that. So those are the kind of things that are on my mind.